Hey guys, welcome back. And this week's short video, I want to talk about a few commonly made teaching mistakes that we should avoid making. So let's go. The first mistake I want to talk about is not talking too much. So as teachers, it's important when we're planning, we try to make our lessons as student focused as possible. So during our planning, we can ask ourselves questions like, does this part of the lesson really need to involve me speaking? So for example, does this have to be an open class activity, or could the students work together in pairs to discuss it first? Now I know some students are going to be quite happy to sit there and listen to the teacher speak for the majority of the class, but the reality is our learners will improve much more quickly if they're given more opportunity to speak during the lesson. All right, number two. So even the teacher's knowledge has some limitations. Unfortunately, even teachers don't know everything. So what this means is eventually we'll all be asked a question at some stage that we don't know the answer to, or we're not 100% comfortable with answering. Now, in these situations, it's important that we don't try to answer the question. If we know ourselves, we're not 100% sure, it's much better not to answer the question. So you can just concede, oh, that's a brilliant question. I'll get back to you on that. Another thing you can do is, oh, brilliant question. Why don't you do a little bit of research for homework and you can tell us about it tomorrow? Or we could avoid this problem completely by just making sure whatever the topic of the lesson is, whatever the language focus is during the planning, we make sure we have a good understanding of it, so we're able to answer questions on topic. And if you receive a question off the topic that you're not 100% confident answering, you can very simply, very politely say, it's a brilliant question, but in this class I really want to focus on this topic today, and we'll have a look at that in a future lesson. So I think all of these ways are, in the long term, much better than trying to answer a question if you're not completely confident of what the answer is. Because what can happen, and it can happen very quickly with higher level classes, upper intermediate, advanced, is the students will notice you're not completely sure, and they'll know if you've given them some inaccurate information, and they'll lose confidence in you. And once your learners have lost confidence in the teacher, it can be really difficult to regain that. So in my opinion, much better in this situation to just concede that you don't know, or it's a great question, and you'll have a look at it in a future class. All right. Three, don't rely on improvisation. So in other words, a great lesson requires good planning. Um, and what this does is, if we've prepared our lesson well, we'll teach with more confidence, and as a result, we'll actually enjoy the lesson more, as well as our students. Now, of course, more experienced teachers will know that the lesson can be adapted depending on the needs of your learners. So, for example, maybe your learners are finding the tasks in your lesson a lot easier than you anticipated. So you can, of course, adapt your lesson to give them more challenging tasks. But generally, planning is really important. And, if you plan well, like I said, you'll enjoy the lesson more. And, you yourself, you'll be more motivated also. Okay, so I think we all know that not every ESL textbook is a riveting page turner. Um, and sometimes even the best textbooks, they can have some sections or some activities that they're not the most engaging, or maybe even not the most logical. So I think what we can do is have an awareness. Look at the activities before your lesson and decide, you know, oh, I don't see too many benefits in this activity. I can skip it. Or maybe you see another activity. It's a nice activity, but can we adapt it? Can we make it a bit more engaging, or can we make it more dynamic for our learners? And you know, in a previous video, we had a look at some different ways we can make our lessons more dynamic. Just another thing I've noticed about some English textbooks, the progression of tasks, it's not always the most logical. So sometimes you might see, for example, you might see a listening or a reading text, they listed some target language, and then instead of going into that target language and, you know, looking at the use and the form and some practice, they might jump to some pronunciation work. So have a look at the progression of tasks and decide if you think it's logical. Oh, lost my microphone. If you think it's logical, or you know, could you reorder the tasks possibly? Okay, hopefully you guys can hear me. Number 5, don't lose patience with your students. So we've probably all experienced situations where it looks like some students just don't understand the concept and they just aren't getting the language. You know, the truth is, most of the time this is because it hasn't been explained properly. So instead of getting frustrated with your learners, stay calm. Maybe you can elicit some more examples. You could try a different approach. Maybe use some images to appeal to different learner styles. You know, as a teacher, it really is our responsibility to explain, model, illustrate until our learners understand what it is. And again, don't just repeat the same approach you tried the first time. So, you know, if you've made your presentation, don't repeat the same presentation you've made, because if they didn't understand you the first time, they probably won't understand the second time. So like I said, get some more examples. Maybe you can use some you know, leading questions to provide some scaffolding so they can arrive at an understanding, or even use some of the stronger students in the class to help out the weaker students. Okay, and the final point. So of course, it's great to have a good rapport with our class, and you know, a good, you know, to have a good atmosphere, and you know, even a good bond with our students. However, it's important to remember we're a teacher first, and you know, the truth is, if your students don't respect you, you probably won't ever achieve a truly great rapport. So, you know, draw the line, make sure you have clear boundaries. You're the teacher first, because really, without respect, you're not gonna achieve strong rapport. So respect comes first, then rapport. Okay. Alright guys, as always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this video useful. I know these are definitely some things, some mistakes I'm guilty of making in the past. You know, I'm curious about you guys. Have you ever made any of these mistakes, or you know, can you think of any other frequently made teaching mistakes that we should avoid? Let me know, guys. Please feel free to leave a comment, leave some feedback, and as always, have a great week, and I'll see you soon. Cheers.